A student asked me a question about interval notation, so I thought I would real quickly give you the basics of interval notation. Consider this number line up here, and if you look at this number line, you'll notice that I have indicated that with an arrow that we want all the numbers bigger than 2, strictly greater than 2. That's why I have the open circle here. Now, if we wanted to express this, one way we could do it is we could say, well, x is strictly greater than 2. And that's a notation that we're accustomed to. Or we might get fancy and say, use set builder notation, say x such that x is greater than 2. Well, interval notation is a little bit quicker. And what we do with interval notation is we work with either brackets like that or parentheses. Now, the bracket indicates that we want to include the endpoint. Now notice on this one right here we have an open circle. So that indicates that we're not going to include the 2. So we're going to use the parentheses. So what we would do is we would take the left endpoint, which is 2, and notice this goes on forever. It goes to infinity. So what we would do is we would just put infinity here and close it with the parentheses. We never put a bracket by infinity. So this says that x is greater than 2. In other words, we want all the x values from 2 to infinity, but not including 2. So strictly greater than 2. Now you notice the difference in this next problem where we have the circle is closed in. In this case, we use the bracket, and we have 2, comma, infinity, and notice once again the infinity is the parentheses. We're not going to, of course, we can't include infinity. It just indicates a direction. Now, notice down here on the third number line, we want all the numbers between -4 and 2, but we don't want to include -4. So I'm going to say -4 with the parentheses, comma, 2 with a bracket. And that's the way we would write this with interval notation. The notation that we usually learn before this, of course, would go x greater than -4 and less than or equal to 2. So this means that x, the numbers that we're interested in, if it's x, we would say x are between -4 and 2, not including -4. Now, notice that I used the word and here. I said we want all the numbers that are greater than -4 and less than or equal to 2. And this next number line, I'm going to use a different word. I'm not going to be able to use and because notice we have these two disjoint number lines or designations here, what part of the number line we want to use. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, okay, I want all the numbers between -infinity and -1, including -1. Okay, that takes care of this. I'm going from -infinity to -1, including -1, or, and we designate or with that symbol, 2 to infinity. And I close the bracket, or close the parentheses. So this reads -infinity to -1 or 2 to infinity.